they used fear to control people. And even in COVID, the language we used was, hey, are we allowed to do this? Is this allowed? Is that allowed? Oh, I don't think that's allowed. And it was just like, you just felt like, you had strings tied to your limbs and you were just, being totally, totally controlled.
And look at the contrast. When God prophesies in the Bible, there is always an element of redemption. There's always even when you think about the children of Israel under Nebuchadnezzar, Jeremiah, people love to quote Jeremiah 29:11. Even in the midst of that, God was always saying, I have hope for you.
Right.
I have future for you because my way is always a way of redemption after correction has taken place.
Well, hey there, you're watching What Was That About? Thank you for joining us for today's episode. I'm Moses Khan. I am with Dr. Tony Saldano, who's the lead pastor here at All People's Church. How you doing, Pastor?
I'm doing well.
You all right?
Yeah. How's your golf game coming?
My golf game?
Yes.
It doesn't exist.
So not well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us for today's episode.
Let's get that negativity. Right out of the way.
I've been to the range maybe twice in my life.
Yeah. How's that?
It's fun. I don't think I'm doing it right, but nonetheless,
we digress.
A few times I hit the ball and it went
straight.
That's funny. That was good. No, more than a few times it went straight. Okay. A few times I hit it and it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways.
How did that feel?
Not good. Not good.
Are we talking about anything today or just?
We're talking about fear. I love scary movies.
I don't.
I know. I like the thrill. Now, here's what I won't do. I won't do scary movies that are about spirituality. So anything demonic, anything like witchcraft.
You like to be startled.
You
like to startle people.
I like a good thriller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
I do. It's fun.
Like a killing.
Yeah. There's a killer on the loose.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is. You know what it is? I think it's the mystery component of who did it.
Okay.
And finding out.
So it's not the murder you enjoy.
It's not. Let's clear that up. It's the mystery.
Otherwise,
it's the mystery.
Might have to have prayer. Okay.
We want to talk about fear and the use of fear. Is fear healthy? Is fear a good motivator? Is fear being overemphasized? I know when we look at media outlets, it's like they run on fear. That's like their bread and butter is to scare people. And sometimes I think it's to scare people to make decisions. Like they're trying to move people's hands.
Yeah.
And so they use fear to either motivate people or demotivate people or scare people off from, even in terms of elections, the way they promote particular parties or they villainize other parties. They use fear. Do you really want this person to be in office? Because then X, Y, and Z will happen. And so, what do you think about the use of fear? Is it being overemphasized? Is it
right
controlling
people?
Well,
you know what? It really is based on control, right? Now we know. Let's put this to bed right away. We know that the Bible tells us we need to fear God first and foremost. Now that fear is different than the fear we're talking about. That fear is about reverence and honor and respect and awe and living in this awareness that God is around us and God is intimately involved in our everyday lives. That is a different sort of fear. As a matter of fact, can I say it this way? If you fear God, you're probably not going to fear anything else.
That's right.
But the fear we're talking about, it is actually demonic. Fear is a spirit. It is a paralyzer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Paul writes and he says fear is a paralyzer. It will literally stop you from believing, from acting in any positive way. It literally will chain up your mind, your spirit, right? You'll just freeze. You will just freeze and be unable to move. That fear is evil. It is wicked. And people, whether they are aware of it or not, that's the fear that they are tapping into. So their words, can I say it this way, Pastor Moses? Their words release not only a response, they release a demonic element. Wow. Think about COVID. Mm-hmm. What was COVID all about? Everything that they espoused, very, very little of it came true. But the amount of fear, we were talking about all the crazy things, either they had us doing or not doing, and you can't have family and all the rest of it, and how many, like if you have 10 people, you're going to die, but 5 people, you're going to be okay. Right. If you're at 6 feet, you're going to live, but at 5 feet, you're going to get sick and maybe what was all that? Yeah. Fear to get you to take a jab or multiple jabs. Right. Yeah. And so I believe, yes, fear is being weaponized. This thing is this thing is like a nuclear missile in the spirit realm, exactly, to control people.
Yeah. Even if you think of throughout history, the different movements, whether you think about empires or whether you think about those who tried to take over the world and become leaders, they used fear to control people. And even in COVID, the language we used was, hey, are we allowed to do this? Is this allowed? Is that allowed? Oh, I don't think that's allowed. And it was just like, you just felt like, you had strings tied to your limbs and you were just, being totally, totally controlled. Because absolutely fear is a weapon. And fear, I think, even in terms of our biology, it releases chemicals into our body. There's certain chemicals that get released in the midst of fear. We start sweating, our heartbeat increases, and adrenaline kicks in. And so we have this even mechanism within us that responds to fear, and so it paralyzes us even biologically and the chemical makeup of our body.
Yeah. And look at the contrast. When God prophesies in the Bible, there is always an element of redemption. Mm-hmm. There's always even when you think about the children of Israel under Nebuchadnezzar, Jeremiah, people love to quote Jeremiah 29:11. Even in the midst of that, God was always saying, I have hope for you. Right. I have future for you because my way is always a way of redemption after correction has taken place. Mm-hmm. What do we see in contrast in fear? It is this picture of the future that unless you do it our way, unless we're in charge, and particularly those on the left side, always they are the spreaders of fear. I mean, they put fear on their toast in the morning. I'm telling you, they spread this thing on like it's peanut butter, right? It's like anybody on the right are just wicked, and they're going to take away your rights, and democracy is going to be gone, and it's the end of the world. And so they terrify, literally, they terrify people into this picture of the future, which, by the way, is completely untrue.
Yeah. People become very illogical when they're afraid. Wow. They do things where common sense is just not working because they're operating out of fear. And so it's like, if you want to control a society, get them to make dumb decisions, then get them to be afraid.
So let me give you an example. During COVID, I had gone out for a walk, and this couple were riding their bicycles. Yeah. And somehow they stumbled. I think it was the husband made a turn. I shouldn't say, I don't know. I assume they were married, they were together, they were a couple. Yeah. And he made a turn, she ran right into him, and they had quite a fall. She was badly hurt, like to the point of she was cut, she was bleeding. Oh, jeez. He was, not quite as bad, but he was hurt as well. And so what's your natural reaction? Your natural reaction is to help people. That's you're can I help you? Yeah. What was astonishing to me, was they were more afraid of me being a potential COVID quote unquote carrier. Yeah. And they were like, don't help us, don't touch us, don't help us. And I'm like, you have got to be, you're bleeding. Right. You're twisted up in this bike and in this metal. Yeah. And their first response, obviously the first response was pain and we got hurt and they're yelling at each other. But then their first response was, get away from us. Wow. Because you are, and I could see it. I literally saw the fear in their face. And I'm like, you think I'm the threat? Right. And so I'm like, okay. And I just walked away because they were so terrified of me being a COVID carrier than you bleeding all over the sidewalk. It was an eye opener to me. It really was.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, why does fear make us so illogical that it overrides our common sense?
Wow.
In our brain, and we just do silly things that we otherwise would not
Well,
do.
it attacks the mind, right, Pastor? But so not only is it emotional, but at the deepest level, it becomes spiritual. Like literally, you can be overtaken by a spirit of fear. So it's not that I'm sure we've all felt some sort of fear.
Yeah.
But there are people that are fearful. They are constant. I see, I was teaching you about the golf. I still see people today, 4 years later, outdoors, wearing a mask.
Wow.
I see people in their car by themselves wearing a mask.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that is no longer even wisdom.
Yeah.
That is something else that it has literally become ingrained in your mind that you are now living a life where you're terrified. Some people won't leave their home.
Right.
Some people will, if they've literally changed their whole lifestyle because of the fear that was embedded in them. And once that spirit can get a hold of you, you need to be set free. And so it's not just about, I had a moment of fear. Hey, I went on a high building, had a fear of heights. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this thing becoming like a nuclear spiritual weapon for the masses, by the way.
Yeah.
For the masses.
Yeah. What's the totality of that verse? For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of
love.
Yeah, love.
Having a sound mind.
And a sound mind.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that he contrasts the spirit of fear with the spirit of love and a sound mind. So we talked about the sound mind, that fear removes our common sense.
Right.
But this aspect of love is interesting because I think fear makes you very selfish. Like the fear of man makes you incredibly selfish, self-focused, inward.
Right.
You don't go serving people when you're afraid.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't lay your life down. You don't hold other people above you when you're operating in the fear of man. In fact, you hold yourself above everybody else. You go into a protective state where your life matters more than the life of others.
Right.
And so fear is incredibly selfish.
Right.
Whereas the love of God, the agape love, is selfless. And so when we fear God, isn't it interesting that we will love others and serve others, even to the point of our own life being at stake?
Yes.
But when we fear people and the spirit of fear comes upon us, who's the person we're protecting and serving? It's ourselves.
Yeah. And what does the scripture say? Love casts out fear.
Yeah.
So think about it. Fear has to be evicted. When love moves in, that agape love, wow, I am loved by God.
Yeah.
My life is in God's hands. This is, by the way, why, some 365 times we're told, do not fear, do not fear, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, do not fear. Because when love moves in, he casts love out. And what's the mother of all fear? Death.
Death, yeah.
Right? And so how come we can have such faith is because even in death, we know that God gives us life, that it's not the end for the believer, right? Yeah. And so when the enemy threatens to kill us, we're like, well, we have a life after this. So what do you do with people like that?
Exactly.
Right? But those that don't have it,
yeah,
and those that are constantly being fed this darkness and this terrifying picture of the future, the Bible calls it fear-mongering. And why does God hate it, Pastor Moses? Because it's manipulative. It is self-serving.
Yeah.
It is a thing that is used to control people and dominate people. And God says, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want that in leadership. I don't want that in nations. By the way, I don't want that in churches. Like we don't want leaders, and we've seen that too, right?
Yep.
Where we've heard people say, "Well, if you leave this church, you're cursed," and God,
Yeah.
that is fear. That's not even scriptural. That's fear mongering.
That's right.
Yeah. And so shame on you if you're leading and operating by fear.
Yeah.
So we want to be, we always try to be balanced here. We try to be balanced to say, we're not just, it's us against them and everything the world does. No.
Right.
We understand that there are aspects that we also incorporate.
Yeah.
And we're going to call it out.
Absolutely.
We're going to call it out.
100%.
And so listen, if you're in a church and under leadership that is constantly, pushing fear, not the fear of God,
Yeah.
but the fear of man,
Yep.
which by the way brings a snare,
That's right.
or the fear of the future. Listen, you need to bow out.
Yeah,
you
get
need to
out.
say, hey, I need to be released from this
That's right.
because you're in a toxic
Yeah.
scenario.
It's manipulation. It's control. Yeah.
Ungodly.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. Hey, listen, I hope you found this conversation enjoyable. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section around this conversation about fear versus the fear of God. Let us know where that's operated maybe in your life. Listen, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Continue to support what we do here on the channel. Like this video, share it with a couple people you know. I'm sure it'll bless them as well. Thank you for this conversation, Pastor.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you. We will see you next time.